Alright, so let's talk about how I clean my records. All the records that I have priced at $3 and up, or that are in new sleeves, have gone through this process. First thing we need to do is mix up a batch of solution for the ultrasonic. Now, generally speaking, it's going to take about 5 quarts of water. I use distilled water, so there's no minerals in it, so there's nothing that's going to get deposited on the records as a part of this process. There's a mark I kind of know where to stop pouring the water at, so that's why I'm not measuring the water. And right about there. It's pretty simple. There's only 3 ingredients: distilled water and isopropyl alcohol. Some people go with the 99% stuff. I just get the 91 because the remainder is just distilled water anyhow. There's no point in paying twice as much for something I'm going to put in there anyhow. And 1/4 cup. That helps get the grime out, dissolve fingerprints, that kind of thing, without using a detergent. The last ingredient is what they call a surfactant. Basically, it breaks the water tension so that the water can get into the grooves of the record a little better. There's a bunch of them out there. I use PhotoFlow. It's used for in developing film. Doesn't take much, just a few drops. They say about 10 drops. I don't have a dropper, but I know that's about right. And I just turn the machine on, and it's going to show me the temperature of the water here. I've got it set to 30 degrees Celsius. It's currently 19. Hit that button to start the heater going on it, and I run it for 30 minutes at 30 degrees, and that seems to do the trick for just about everything. I could probably do less time if I used fewer records in there at a time, but I'm doing 8 records in a batch, so I let it run a little bit longer so that all the records get equal treatment. Okay, so now it's time to load up the ultrasonic with the records we're going to clean. Now I take this opportunity to also put a new outer sleeve on the record. So we'll pull the vinyl out, pop it on the spindle, add a spacer, and then re-sleeve the record. And I just repeat this 7 more times. I like to put new outer sleeves on the records for a couple of reasons. One, it just looks nice, but also to help reduce wear on the records as they are flipped through in the bins. So from people constantly flipping through the records, it can wear the sleeve down, making unsightly marks and reducing the value of the records. So it helps prevent that. Also gives me a surface to stick my price sticker to without putting it directly on the cover itself. Because even though my stickers are supposed to come off easily, I have a feeling that if a sticker's been on there for a while, when you take it off, it's going to peel off a little bit of the paper from the cover. We don't want that. Okay, so now we've got all 8 records in there. So we put the last spacer on and screw it on nice and tight. Not too tight, because we don't want to crack the records. I have a variable speed motor back here. Well, the motor itself didn't come as variable speed, but I purchased a variable voltage power supply here that allows me to basically make it that way, because out of the box the Vevor motor goes too fast. It spins the records too quickly, so I like to crank it down to about 3.5 to 4 volts, which gets the proper speed. So we'll turn the motor on, lower the records into the tank. You can see they're spinning nice and slow. We fire it up, let it go for 30 minutes. I'll see you in 30 minutes. All right, so the cycle's complete. So we turn the motor off, raise the records up out of the bath, and we're going to get ready to give them a little rinse. So I've got this spin clean, and I used to use that exclusively to clean my records until I got the ultrasonic and the record doctor. But now I still use it. I still use the record doctor too, but I don't use the brushes. It's just distilled water in there, and I use that to rinse the records before I dry them on the record doctor. So the record doctor is basically just a vacuum extractor. There's literally a vacuum cleaner motor in here. And it just sucks along this slot here, which has some felt on it to keep from scratching the records. You'll see how it works here in a minute. It does a fantastic job of pulling that liquid out of the grooves and bringing out any dirt and so forth that might still be stuck in there. So let's get to it. So this part is loud. So I always use ear protection, and I'll probably bleep over it or something, play some music while the vacuum motor is going. But if you do have one of these at home, please use ear protection when you do it. It's not good for you long term. All right, so I pull the record off. I give it 2 spins in here to get it nice and rinsed. Let it drip all the excess off. And set it on the record doctor. And I do 2 spins in one direction and then 1 spin in the opposite direction. And that seems to do the quickest job of getting the record almost completely dry. And after I do this, I'll set it in the rack where it will finish drying. And I just repeat this process 8 times. And that's it. And I'll always drain this after each batch. I made the mistake once of letting it fill, and water spilled inside the unit and got the OSB wet and it was a mess. I basically had to rebuild this thing to get it to work again. So now I always drain it after every batch of 8 records. And yes, it sounds like a beep. That's it. Ready for the next batch. Thanks. All right, so this is the last phase of the cleaning process. At this point, I've done 3 batches, so the rack here holds 3 batches worth of records. There's 24 records there. And now all I really do is give them a last inspection, a new inner sleeve, and then they're ready to be graded and listed for sale or brought to my antique booth. So just give them a quick check, make sure they're not warped. And slipped in there like so. And the main thing I'm looking for, because I do the grading later, so I'm not grading the records, that's why I'm not looking at them for very long. The main thing I'm looking for is warpage. Most warps will be picked up during the rinsing and drying process. If the record is out of round, when I do it in the spin clean, I can detect that. And if there are big warps in the surface, when I'm using the vacuum, it'll lose suction, or otherwise I'll be able to tell. But I still like to give them one last look over. Yeah, that's pretty much it. If you're watching this and standing in my booth, or you saw this at linked at a record fair where you saw me selling records, then you've got some idea now of the amount of work that goes into preparing my records for sale. This whole process for a batch of 8 records takes about 45 to 50 minutes. That's what, like 6 minutes a record, something like that. Add in another 2 to 3 minutes for me to identify the release, sort the record, and then grade it and list it for sale. We're close to 10 minutes of my time for each record that I have re-sleeved and cleaned. And that's why you still see my bargain bins. I've got the dollar bins for records that I have not cleaned, just because it wouldn't be worth my time to do it. Those records are generally either in worse shape, so it could be a good, valuable record, but it's just not a very good copy of it. Or it could be that that it's just not a particularly desirable record, right? So it could be Mantovani or Mitch Sings or something like that, right? That there just isn't much of a market for. Also, it's kind of sad. Some records that are great records, right? Great music, they just aren't desirable, either because there's a million copies out there, or it's just not the current style, or people just don't think it's cool to collect. I think that's a shame myself, but it is the way it is. All right, I'll leave you here. I'm still cleaning records here and getting them re-sleeved and ready to go, but I appreciate you taking the time to watch my process here, and I hope to see you out there at a record fair or a flea market or something like that in the future. Take care. When the water starts to get kind of grimy, it's time to change it. So all we have to do Open the valve, let it drain out. When it's done draining, I'll wipe out the inside and dry it off just to get all the grime and crud out of there. Now generally I only have to change the water about every 2 or 3 rackfuls, so that's somewhere between 48 and 72 records. Unless they're really dirty, then sometimes it's a little less. Alright. That's it. Ready to go for next time.